Nigeria's oil and gas sector is one of the most vibrant, not just as the country's economic mainstay, but for its unending question marks. Once again, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NETI, has released yet another damning report on the sector, with key findings on subsidy payments, crude oil theft, and more. For the period under review, 2009 to 2011, Nigeria recorded a total crude oil production of over 2.5 billion barrels, from which the Federation earned a total revenue of $143 million. The report also disclosed that the federal government made total fuel subsidy payments of 3 trillion naira to importers of refined petroleum products from 2009 to 2011. But the disparity between the subsidy claims paid from the Federation account and the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, was 175.9 billion naira during the same period.
For example, the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation reported to 90 auditors a total subsidy payment of 2.825 trillion naira, while the PPPRA disbursed 3 trillion naira to marketers during the same period. This report further noted that some marketers disagreed with the amount ascribed to them by the PPPRA. In 2010 in particular, a particular marketer claimed 2.56 billion naira as fuel subsidy, but PPPRA recorded payments of 1.5 billion naira, leaving an unreconciled difference of 1.04 billion naira.
Crude oil theft and deliberate sabotage remains a financial drainage for the country, with over 136 million barrels, estimated at $10.9 billion, lost during the year under review. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, pointed out more cases of non-remittances and called for a joint review of the report by all relevant agencies.
One of the things that they pointed out is the about 4.84 billion in financial flows from NLNG, which includes dividends received by NNPC, which I'm sure, I don't know if he has discussed, but which have not yet been remitted.
We'll continue to relate, we'll continue to improve on the backlog of issues. We'll look at the recommendations, we'll implement them.
Some of the recommendations are that PPPRA should remit over 4 billion naira arising from over-recovery of fuel subsidy funds collected to the Federation account. Agree or disagree, the fact is that this report has brought a lot of issues to the table. But it now begs the question of what next, as this is not the first time NETI is issuing such a controversial report on the oil and gas sector. The first was in 2006 and has yet to see implementation. So what happens after now with this? Doris Okenwa, Channel Television News.
Well, we're taking it from there. Curbing crude oil theft. Well, it is said that we lose 400,000 barrels of crude daily to oil thieves. And there's now projection that this definitely has the potential or the capacity, if you will, to affect vision for 2020. That's what we're focusing on this morning, and we're joined by Ovuozorie Macauley, who is the Secretary to the State Government of Delta State. Morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Welcome.
Well, indeed, this raises a lot of concern, lots of meetings here and there, activities, even from oil-producing states, as a matter of fact. But looking at all of this, does it mean that this is beyond us? From what you've seen, what do you think is going on?
Well, I won't say there's any problem that beyond the country. The issue is how determined are we to tackle these issues headlong. The issue of oil theft is older than some of us. I can recall that back in the late 70s when I finished secondary school, that was the first time I heard about bunkering, when a group of old friends attempted to introduce me into what's called bunkering. And they were asking that I try and make my people to raise 15,000 naira then, which was big money then. No car was more than 7,000. But they wanted me to raise 15,000 so as to join them. I said, well, I couldn't even afford money to move into the higher institution, so where am I getting that from? And of course, when I now find out what it was all about, I ran away from them. So bunkering is an old, it has become really epidemic because over the years it has grown. This is some 35, 40 years back. So the whole thing has grown to become an epidemic in the country. But what I see is that if the country is determined to solve it, we can solve it.
You know, the problem now, we decide to look at some of the states in the Niger Delta. Of course, it's given that that's where the oil comes from. How does it operate? Have you been able to, because now the government is talking about it, states in the region are also talking about it to the extent that a task force has been set up to look at how they can curb all of this. Do we have foreigners who come in to steal this oil, or are the people responsible for this theft?
Okay, there are two major sets of thieves, if we were to use that word. We have the locals, the small ones, who steal from abandoned wellheads that are still very active. What I mean by abandoned wellheads are some of these wells that were drilled by the multinationals, and they discovered that what is there is not all that sufficient for them, or is sufficient but they don't want to move in there yet. So they leave it. It's a very active well, but the head is left open. The locals have access to those ones, and they take oil from there and they cook it, that is, they refine it locally and sell within the country. The second set are those ones that one is more technical. You pump from a particular point to the loading station. That's through the SPDC pipelines. And in the course of pumping, like what I saw in the clip just now, you have the valves in between at different points. And I say it's technical because somebody has to understand the technique to be able to open that valve at a particular point and put the hose into it and move it into the lower part of the creek, where what we call the Cotonou boats are waiting. And the load, you now extract from that place. That's the one that's supposed to be pumping, maybe to the Escravos terminal, whatever terminal from where it's supposed to be officially loaded. You now start loading from there. And by the time the valves will read, for the meters will read, for them to know that something has gone on, you will have pumped some millions or hundreds of thousands away. And they pump those ones into what you call the Cotonou boat. The Cotonou boat takes it to a baby vessel waiting at the tip of the sea, at the creek. Because the baby vessel will not be able to go into the real creek where the Cotonou vessel goes to. And this Cotonou vessel, each of them can load as much as the volume of crude that will go into 30 trucks. And when you know that a truck is supposed to take about 30 to 33,000. So each one will take up to that. Take it to the baby vessel. The mother vessel is waiting in the high sea. So the baby vessel takes it from there, from the Cotonou boat, and take it to the mother vessel at the high sea. That is where the foreigners are involved. I'll tell you that what the locals are getting for their local illegal refinery is not more than 10 to 15% of the total volume of oil theft. So they now take it to the